My sister broke into the house I bought for our parents and shouted, "This house is mine now." I never imagined I'd be changing the locks of a home I purchased for my own parents. But that's exactly what happened. My name is Sloan. I'm 37, and I'm a neurosurgeon. That detail matters because it explains the money, the long hours, and why my family often sees me as a walking bank account. This began on a Saturday in late June. I had taken the day off and driven 3 hours to the coast, bringing an expensive birthday cake and a bottle of champagne. The cake was strawberries and cream, the kind my dad loved growing up but never got to eat much. I was stupidly excited, windows down, thinking about how much my parents deserved something nice. But the moment I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. A huge SUV blocked the path, parked crookedly. The front door was wide open, the screen door banging in the wind. My stomach dropped. I heard yelling before I even reached the porch. A man's aggressive voice, my mother's higher one, and underneath, loud cartoons and children screaming. I'm used to chaos. I work in operating rooms where staying calm can be the difference between life and death. But stepping into my parents' home and seeing what I saw made my hands shake so much I nearly dropped the cake. My mother stood in the kitchen, gripping a dish towel, eyes red and swollen from crying. My father sat at the table, hands trembling so badly his wedding ring tapped against the wood. He looked up at me with a kind of defeated expression I had never seen on him. The living room was a disaster. Boxes everywhere, clothes spilling out, a large muddy dog digging into the couch cushions. 2 small kids, maybe 5 and 7, ran in messy circles, screaming while cartoons blasted at full volume. And sitting on my parents' table, new couch like she owned it, was my younger sister. She looked relaxed, wearing a messy bun, yoga pants, scrolling her phone with her bare feet on the coffee table. She looked up and actually smiled. Her husband, Kyle, stood beside the couch holding a beer at 2 p.m., also barefoot. I'd met him a few times and always thought he was trouble. My instincts were right. Kyle was mid-sentence when I walked in, pointing at my father. "This is my house now. You need to accept that." The room froze. My sister's eyes widened. Kyle's hands stopped. Even the kids paused. I walked to the coffee table and set down the cake. It made a soft thump. "What," I said quietly, "is going on here?" My sister recovered first, switching into her usual victim act. "Sloan, oh my God, I didn't know you were coming. How did you even find this place?" I cut her off. She bit her lip. "Well, Dad posted a picture on social media. You could see the street sign, so it wasn't hard to figure out where it was. I just wanted to see where they lived. And when we saw how big it was, you tracked down the house I bought for our parents using a photo," I said, "then showed up with your whole family and decided to move in. We're just staying for a little while. The house is huge, Sloan. There's enough room for everyone. You're hardly around anyway, and Mom and Dad aren't getting younger." "I'm 59, my father said, quietly, his first words, voice rough. Kyle stepped closer, trying to use his height to intimidate me. "We already talked to your parents. We're family. We take care of each other. This place is big enough for everyone to use." I repeated his last words. To use. He looked at my mother. "Your parents agree with us, don't you?" Something in his expression shifted. Threatening, controlling. I turned to my mom. Really looked. She wouldn't meet my eyes. This wasn't a surprise visit. This was planned, coordinated, an intrusion. "Mom, did you invite them here?" She opened her mouth, closed it again. "They just showed up this morning, and we explained the situation." My sister cut in, standing. Look, Sloan, be reasonable. You bought them this giant house they don't even need. They can't handle the stairs. I can handle the damn stairs, my father said more firmly. And we're struggling with money, my sister added quickly. Kyle lost his job. Our lease is ending. We've got the kids. This makes sense. We'll help with upkeep. They'll get to be with the grandkids. Everyone benefits. I looked at the boxes, the dog ripping apart a pillow. My parents sitting there like hostages. Get out, I said. Kyle laughed. Yeah, that's not happening. You have 30 seconds to start packing before I call the police. Call them, he said. This is family. They won't do anything. Your parents invited us, didn't you? My mother started crying again. Sloan, please, let's just talk. She opened her mouth, closed it again. They just showed up this morning and we explained the situation. My sister cut in, standing. Look, Sloan, be reasonable. You bought them this giant house they don't even need. They can't handle the stairs. I can handle the damn stairs, my father said more firmly. And we're struggling with money, my sister added quickly. Kyle lost his job. Our lease is ending. We've got the kids. This makes sense. We'll help with upkeep. They'll get to be with the grandkids. Everyone benefits. I looked at the boxes, the dog ripping apart a pillow, my parents sitting there like hostages. Get out, I said. Kyle laughed. Yeah, that's not happening. You have 30 seconds to start packing before I call the police. Call them, he said. This is family. They won't do anything. Your parents invited us, didn't you? My mother started crying again. Sloan, please, let's just talk. That's when I realized exactly what happened. They showed up without warning and pressured my parents for hours. They used the kids as leverage. Every manipulation tactic they had. I took out my phone. Who are you calling? Kyle asked. His confidence slipped. Someone to change the locks. He's been on standby since Dad called me last night. My sister's face went pale. Dad called you? I scrolled to the number. Yes, at 11 p.m. He told me what you did. I've been preparing all morning. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. The locksmith picked up. Hey, Victor. Yeah, I'm here. Can you come? 2 houses down, like we planned. Perfect. 10 minutes. I hung up and looked at Kyle. 10 minutes. After that, you're trespassing, and I will have you removed. This house belongs to our parents. I'm the legal trustee and property manager. You have no rights here. You can't, my sister started. I absolutely can, and I will. 10 minutes. But to understand how it reached this point, I need to back up. Because without context, none of this makes sense. You're probably wondering why my sister would do this, why my parents looked frozen, and why I had a locksmith ready. I was always the responsible one. Not because I was smarter, because someone had to be. I translated medical bills for my parents when I was 10. I did homework while my younger sister Julia played outside, not because I wanted to, but because I planned to pull us out of poverty. My parents weren't irresponsible. They just never had enough. Dad worked construction. Mom cleaned houses. We always had food, but no savings, no safety net. One unexpected bill meant eating the cheapest meals for weeks. Julia was 5 years younger, the baby, the fun one, the creative one, the one everyone adored. I was the anxious one, the serious one, always preparing. When I got into college on a scholarship, my parents cried. When I got into med school, they threw a small party with cheap cake and discount champagne. When I finished residency with a salary that felt unreal to them, they didn't know what to say. That's when things started changing. The calls began. Julia needed help with rent, then her car, then a new apartment, then groceries. Then Kyle entered the picture, and suddenly I was supporting 2 adults, just until things improved. I helped every time, because I convinced myself that's what family does. And honestly, I didn't want to feel like the selfish one. My money transfer history was basically a journal of enabling. Rent, bills, car repair, job interview clothes, emergencies, baby things, again and again. I never added the total because I didn't want to face it. It was likely 6 figures over 8 years. My parents stayed quiet about it, always trying to keep peace, always suggesting I be patient. And I did, for a long time. Helping my parents was different. Paying their mortgage when Dad's company shut down, covering medical costs, that felt right. But with Julia, it never ended. She took and nothing changed. About a year ago, I finally said no. Unless it was a real emergency, I couldn't keep supporting her. She cried, called me heartless, said money had changed me. My parents gently tried to mediate, but I stayed firm, even though I felt guilty. Then I had an idea, something for my parents alone. Their 50th anniversary was coming up. 5 decades of scraping by, never taking real vacations, never relaxing. I wanted to give them something lasting, a home that felt like peace. I spent months searching. I wanted a calm coastal place, a house full of light, quiet, ready for them. When I found it, white with blue shutters, big windows, a porch facing the sunrise, I knew it was the one. It cost $425,000, worth every cent. I put everything in their names. Set up a trust, paid taxes decades ahead, furnished it myself. Stocked the kitchen. I left a note. Happy anniversary. Love, Sloan. I brought them there on a random Tuesday. Told them we were going for a drive. When we pulled into the driveway and I handed them the keys, they just stared. My mother started crying before entering the house. My father kept saying, "What did you do?" And I kept replying, "It's yours, really yours." We spent 3 perfect days there, walking the beach, cooking, talking, laughing. No stress, no drama, no Julia. They promised not to tell anyone yet, especially her. Then life went back to normal for me. Surgeries, long weeks, little sleep. During a surgery on a 16-year-old with a brain tumor, my phone buzzed non-stop. 6 hours later, I saw dozens of texts. Julia had called my parents for a casual check-in. Mom answered without thinking. She heard waves and panicked. Terrible lies followed. But Julia was always quick to notice hidden things. By dinner, she had the address somehow. Maybe Mom slipped. Maybe reverse image searching. Maybe luck. But she got it and didn't act immediately. She planned, because she needed a place. Kyle had lost another job. They were close to eviction. And then she remembered the beach house, paid off, furnished, usually empty. So she took it. This wasn't confusion. It was a deliberate takeover of the one thing I wanted to keep untouched. Victor pulled in 9 minutes after my call. Calm, efficient, unaffected by Kyle's yelling and Julia's crying, while my parents stood there stunned. Some fights aren't shouting matches. Sometimes they're about documents, locks, and a tired neurosurgeon finally refusing to be used. As Victor unloaded his tools, I turned to my parents, "Show me around." Not because I needed a tour. I already knew the place since I furnished it, but because I wanted to see what Julia and Kyle had done in those few hours. The master bedroom with the ocean view. The space I had intentionally designed as my parents' retreat was completely taken over. Julia's clothes filled the closet, Kyle's shoes were by the door, and children's toys were scattered everywhere. They had moved their entire life into the best room without asking. My parents' belongings had been pushed into the smaller guest room with no view, no attached bathroom, and barely enough room for the bed. "When did they do this?" I asked quietly. My mom wrung her hands. "They arrived around at 8, said they just wanted to visit for the day, then started bringing things in. Kyle said the room assignments made more sense because of the kids, and before I realized what was happening, did you tell them they couldn't stay?" My dad's jaw clenched repeatedly. Kyle kept saying we were being unwelcoming, that family supports family, that we had unused space. I opened Kyle's laptop on the bed. Yes, it was an invasion of privacy, but I was desperate. What I found made my stomach drop. The house was listed on a rental platform. Posted that very morning. Kyle had taken professional-looking photos, my photos from when I furnished it, and made a listing titled "Luxury Beachfront Escape, Entire Home." The description said, "Gorgeous coastal retreat sleeps 10. Available year-round. Owner occupied during off-season only." The calendar showed bookings. Actual bookings starting next weekend and continuing through August. 12 of them, at $3,000 a week. 12 weeks, $36,000 for the summer. The payment account was in Kyle's name, not my parents'. Kyle's. I checked his browser history. He'd researched beachfront rental income, profit margins, HOA rules, and ignored the clear clause banning short-term rentals. There was even a business plan on the desktop. I opened it. That's when things went from bad to unbelievable. Kyle predicted $200,000 a year if they managed the property correctly. He added taxes, maintenance, and something called family residence fees, which was what he planned to charge my parents for living in the downstairs room during the off-season. He was preparing to charge my parents rent in their own home, the home I bought with my money. At the bottom was a notes section, in Julia's handwriting. "Mom always caves when emotional. Mention grandkids. If Sloan interferes, bring up med school loans. She always feels guilty." I paid off my med school loans 6 years ago, but the fact that Julia thought she could use made-up debt as leverage told me exactly how she viewed me. I photographed everything, the listing, bookings, business plan, notes, then went downstairs. Kyle was talking to Victor about family matters, and Victor was politely ignoring him while measuring the door. "Kyle, come inside. I need to show you something." He swaggered in, beer in hand. Julia followed, tear-streaked but defiant. My parents came down slowly. I opened Kyle's laptop for everyone to see. "So, you listed my parents' house on a rental platform without permission or ownership rights. You've taken money from 12 families who think they're renting a legitimate property." Kyle went pale. Julia's mouth dropped open. "That's not—" Kyle started. "It's not illegal," he tried saying. "It absolutely is. It's fraud. You're accepting money for property you don't own, with no authority to rent. And you're breaking HOA rules that could get my parents sued." I pulled up the HOA documents. Section 7, Paragraph 3. No property may be used for rentals less than 30 days. You're renting weekly, exposing my parents to massive fines. "We were going to include them," Julia said quickly. "It's their house. Of course they get a percentage." "A percentage of money you'd earn by illegally renting a home that isn't yours. How generous." "The house doesn't belong to you either," Kyle snapped. "It belongs to them. They can do what they want, and if they want us to manage it." Did they agree? I asked quietly. Silence. Did my parents tell you, yes, Kyle, list our house and keep the money? More silence. Because I see your name on everything, income, expenses, payments, but nowhere do I see homeowner consent. It's not a scheme, Julia said, her voice shaking. We're family. We support each other. You bought them this big house they barely use. We're struggling. It made sense. It made sense to you. It made sense to arrive uninvited, take over their bedroom, push them into the smallest room, and start running a business out of a property you have no legal right to. And why didn't you ask me first? Why not call and say, we're struggling. Can we talk about staying at the beach house? Why ambush them and try to establish squatters' rights before I could find out? No answer, because we all knew why. They didn't ask because they knew I'd say no. Their entire plan depended on overwhelming my parents before I arrived. I turned to my parents. Did you know about the rental listing? Dad shook his head. We found out an hour before you got here. Your mom saw what he was doing. She called me crying. I called you. We're not leaving, Kyle announced. This is going to court. Family court. Judges keep families together, especially when kids are involved. I looked at him, opened my email, and started typing. Okay, let's think. You refuse to leave, so I contact the platform with proof you listed property you don't own. Contact the HOA with evidence you violated regulations. Contact the 12 families to warn them the listing is fraudulent. Contact the police because you're trespassing. Contact my lawyer about criminal fraud. Did I miss anything? Kyle's beer can crumpled in his hand. Or you leave in 15 minutes and we pretend none of this happened. Your choice. Julia grabbed my arm. Sloan, please, we have nowhere. The kids. The kids are your responsibility. You're their parents. Not me, not mom and dad. Victor appeared. First lock is ready. Want me to do all the doors? All of them. Every door and window. Kyle slammed his beer down. Fine, we'll leave, but you're making a big mistake. They packed with noise and drama. Julia cried. Kyle muttered about lawyers. The kids asked questions no one answered. The dog left muddy paw prints on the white couch. When they finally drove off, my mother sat on the porch steps with her head in her hands. My father stood beside her, staring at the ocean. Victor changed all 5 locks, installed new deadbolts, and programmed a keypad only my parents and I could access. I tipped him $200. We sat on the porch as the sun set, coloring everything gold and pink. It should have been peaceful. Instead, I felt hollow because I knew this wasn't the end. Julia never stops. I'd embarrassed her, removed her, and cut off what she saw as a lifeline. My phone buzzed nonstop. Julia, cousins, my aunt, friends. The real fight had just begun. And 20 minutes after her SUV disappeared, the message assault started. My phone vibrated like a trapped insect. Julia's messages followed a pattern. First, hurt. I can't believe you'd treat family like this. Then guilt. The kids are asking why Aunt Sloan doesn't love them. Then anger. You've always acted superior. Then manipulation. Mom is crying because of what you did. I didn't respond. I'd learned the hard way that any reply would be twisted. But she wasn't doing it alone. Within an hour, cousins were messaging me. My dad's sister said she'd heard concerning things. Family friends saw Julia's posts. My mom called around 8, her voice small. You should look at Julia's social media. I opened Julia's profile. She had been posting non-stop. A photo of my car, with a caption about priorities and what money does to people. A vague post about how blood doesn't really ma. A story showing a real estate listing with the caption, "Some people buy love." And then her long emotional posts, Julia loved writing, about family struggle, people forgetting their roots. She didn't mention me by name, but it was clear. Comments were full of supportive friends, distant relatives who liked drama, and random strangers. "You should respond," Mom said. "Tell people the truth." No, I'm not getting into a public fight. That's what she wants. She wants me to defend myself so she can twist it. I'm not playing that game. But people think you threw her out for no reason. People who matter know the truth. People who don't know don't matter. It sounded good, but the posts still hurt. I spent the night at the beach house. We ordered pizza and sat on the porch, avoiding the topic of Julia. Dad told me about a neighbor he'd met. Mom showed me shells she collected. Simple things that felt huge after such a day. Around 10, after they went to bed, I made a doc. A clear list of boundaries. 3 rules. 1. I will not provide financial help unless there is a real, verified emergency, not rent shortages or car repairs. 2. Communication must be respectful. I won't engage with guilt, manipulation, or public campaigns. 3. My parents' home is their sanctuary, not available for long stays, money-making plans, or pressure. Only brief, prearranged visits are allowed. Then I did something I'd avoided for 8 years. I went through my banking records and added up everything I'd sent Julia. Rent, emergencies, just this once payments. $147,000. I stared at that number. That was a house, retirement savings, real security, spent for temporary peace that never lasted. I attached the document to an email. "Julia, these are my boundaries from now on. I love you, but these are not negotiable. If you want to talk about something else, I'm available. But these rules stay." I sent it, then set an auto-response to repeat the boundaries Ev. Emailed. It felt empowering and draining at the same time. 2 days later, Kyle listed the house again on another platform under a fake account. The HOA president called. Someone had reported a suspicious listing with my parents' address. I found it. Same photos, same description, new account. Kyle learned nothing except how to hide slightly better. I sent everything to the platform with proof of ownership and a formal fraud report. The account was banned in 10 minutes. I sent the same information to the HOA, clarifying my parents weren't involved. They sent Kyle a cease and desist, then a violation notice with possible fines, then a warning that legal action would follow if it continued. Kyle responded by calling my dad and yelling about lawyers on family. My dad, who spent 59 years avoiding conflict, hung up on him, unplugged the house phone, and sat on the porch looking guilty and relieved. "I've never hung up on anyone," he told me later, "but I'm not letting him talk to me like that." The social media attacks continued for a week, then escalated. Julia posted about narcissistic relatives, about people who weaponize success, about inequality, buzzwords arranged to make it sound like I caused every problem in her life. Then the posts turned darker. She talked about stress harming children, instability causing trauma. She posted a photo of her kids looking sad with a caption about innocent casualties. That bothered me. Not because I believed I caused harm, but because using children as emotional tools is one of the lowest things someone can do. She was building a story where I was the villain who ruined kids' lives. I called my lawyer, not to sue, but to ask what to document. He told me to save everything: messages, posts, calls, emails. Not because I planned anything, but in case things escalated. Things escalated. Kyle lost his job, or maybe he never really had one. Either way, he was unemployed and facing eviction. Suddenly, their situation was urgent, in a way it hadn't been when they were trying to profit off my parents' home. Julia called. I didn't answer. She left a 7-minute voicemail. First 3 minutes, begging. Next 2, saying I could fix everything if I let go of pride. The last 2 were scattered. Something about lawyers, family court, and proving I was an unfit aunt. I saved it, added it to the documentation folder. Julia then called my parents. She cried, begged, said the kids would be homeless, said it was all my fault, said if they loved their grandchildren, they'd convince me. My mother called me in tears. I can't stand thinking of those babies without a home. Those babies have 2 parents. Housing them is their job, not yours, not mine. But we could help. Mom, no. We've been helping for years. Every time we help, we teach her she doesn't need response. It has to stop. Silence. I know this is hard, I said, but guilt isn't a reason to sacrifice your peace. What they did wasn't okay. Consequences aren't cruelty. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, staring at the city lights, feeling a decade older. Standing up for yourself doesn't feel triumphant. It feels necessary, exhausting, and lonely. 3 weeks passed. I buried myself in work so intensely that coworkers asked if I was all right. I wasn't, not fully. But neurosurgery has a way of putting things into perspective. When you're holding someone's cerebral cortex, your own problems seem smaller. My parents called every few days with small updates. Dad's garden, Mom's book club. They didn't mention Julia unless I asked, and even then, their voices went quiet. One Saturday in mid-July, I drove down unexpectedly with sandwiches from their favorite deli. The porch had fresh red geraniums, Mom's favorite. That felt like progress. Dad was on the porch working on something. When he looked up, he smiled, really smiled. What are you building? Address plaque. Thought it was time to make this place feel official, permanent. Inside, I noticed little changes. A wind chime, a new doormat, a wooden sign near the door that said "Welcome" in my mom's handwriting. They were making the house theirs, truly theirs, not just a gift they were afraid to use. We ate lunch on the deck. The sandwiches were good. The conversation was light. Weather, neighbors, a pelican's lack of dignity. Nobody mentioned Julia for 2 hours. That felt like a victory. Julia's been calling, my mom finally said. Every day, sometimes twice. I set my food down. And? We've been letting it go to voicemail. Mostly. Your father listens. I can't hear her crying like that. Dad put down his sandwich. The messages are always the same. She's desperate. Kyle's still unemployed. They're about to lose their apartment. Kids need school supplies. Same story, different details. Have you sent money? No, my mom said, almost surprised at herself. I wanted to. Believe me, I did. But your father and I talked. We decided we've been helping in the wrong way. Enabling, Dad corrected. That's what the therapist called it. I blinked. You're seeing a therapist? Started 2 weeks ago, Mom said. The neighbor recommended someone. We go together, once a week, to talk about all this, to understand how we got here and how to move forward. Relief washed over me. Pride too. That's really good. I'm proud of you both. The therapist explained something, Dad continued. There's a difference between helping and enabling. Helping is giving support so they can solve their own problem. Enabling is solving the problem for them so they never learn. We've been solving Julia's problems since she was a teenager, Mom added softly. And you've been solving them since you started earning. She's never had to figure it out. We sat with that. Waves rolled in. A seagull cried overhead. Life kept moving around our family drama, completely unaffected. She sent us a payment request through that app for $2,000 for housing assistance. As if we'd forgotten how to say no. What did you do? We declined it, then blocked her on the app, then felt sick for 3 hours. Mom squeezed his hand. We're learning. It's not easy, but we're learning. Julia sent me an email, a long one, about choosing you over her, about how we never gave her the same chances, about how we favored you because you were successful. That's not, I started, but Mom cut me off. I know it's not true. We tried to help both of you, but you took that help and built a life. Julia is still waiting for someone else to build hers. There was something new in Mom's voice. Stronger, sadder, but more firm, like she'd crossed a line inside herself and couldn't go back. I wrote her back, Mom said. Told her we love her. We'll always love her. But we can't keep risking our security for choices she and Kyle are making. We're here if she needs emotional support, but we are not an ATM. How did she respond? Dad snorted softly. With a lot of capital letters, words I didn't know she even used. Then nothing. Haven't heard from her in 4 days. That's good. Silence is Julia's way of punishing people for having boundaries. She'll wait to see if you give in. When you don't, she'll try something else. The therapist said that too, Mom added. Called it an extinction burst. Said Julia will probably escalate before she accepts the new reality. I helped Dad finish the address plaque that afternoon. Quiet, steady work. Almost meditative. While we worked, Mom told me about book club. 8 women all around her age. They read mysteries, drank wine, and gossiped in the best pause. She'd made friends, real friends. Not just people who knew her as someone's mother or wife, people who knew her as herself. I didn't realize how lonely I was, she said. I had your father and you girls, and I thought that was enough. But it wasn't the same as having my own friends, my own life. Does that sound awful? That sounds healthy, I said. That evening, we grilled chicken. Dad told awful jokes. Mom laughed at every single one. My phone buzzed several times, but I didn't look. Whatever it was could wait. This moment, my parents actually happy, was more important than whatever new disaster Julia was creating. I stayed the night and took the guest room my parents had reclaimed. In the morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and found them on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the sunrise. This is what I wanted, I said from the doorway. This exact thing. You too, peaceful, enjoying something beautiful. Dad turned back. Thank you, Sloan. Not just for the house, for standing up when we couldn't. You're standing up now, I said. That's what matters. I left after breakfast. I had to get back for Monday's surgery. As I drove away, I watched them in my rearview mirror. 2 people on their porch, waving, surrounded by geraniums, their new address plaque, and hard-earned peace. My phone had 17 missed calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize. When I checked voicemail, it was all Julia calling from different phones, each message more desperate than the last. The final message was different, calmer, almost cold. Fine, Sloan, you win. You've turned our parents against me. You've made sure I have nothing. I hope you're happy. Don't expect to ever see your niece and nephew again. You've made your choice. I saved it, added it to the documentation folder. Then I called my lawyer and asked, at what point does harassment become legal grounds for action? I read it 3 times, each time catching new details that made my stomach twist. It began with an apology. Aunt Sloan, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to, but Mom said you'd twist everything. I'm 16 now, old enough to know when something's wrong. This is wrong. She laid it all out. Timeline, dates, conversations she'd overheard. Julia and Kyle had been planning this for 6 months. 6 months. Not a moment of impulse. Not a last-minute desperate move. A planned, calculated strategy. They'd found the beach house back in January, not from Dad's social media. That came later. Julia had gone through Mom's phone during Christmas while Mom was in the bathroom. She found photos, texts about the house, the address saved under beach house, because that's how Mom organizes things. Julia said nothing, just snapped a picture of the address. She spent weeks doing research, checking property values, calculating possible rental income, confirming it was in my parents' names while I was trustee, figuring out exactly how much money could be made. My niece wrote, Mom and Kyle had this whole plan. They talked every night after we went to bed. But I'm 16, not 6. I could hear through the walls. Kyle would pull up rental listings and show Mom how much people made on beach houses. He said your parents didn't need that much space. Said you were selfish for keeping it empty when you had so much. The plan had levels. If Plan A failed, move to Plan B. It was disturbing how much thought they'd put into it. Plan A was takeover. Show up unannounced, move in, establish residence. Make it difficult for anyone to remove them without a long legal process. List the house for rent before anyone could stop them. Make enough money to fix their financial problems while betting my parents were too conflict avoidant to call the police on their own daughter. Plan B, if I interfered, was to claim a family agreement. Say my parents had invited them. Call it a misunderstanding. Cry about being struggling parents. Play the victim. Make me look like the cruel sibling who refused to help family in need. Plan C, if that failed, was legal action. Sue for elder exploitation. Claim I had manipulated my parents into giving me control of assets that should be shared. Sue for emotional damages. Sue for anything that might pressure a settlement or create enough chaos that I give in. My niece attached screenshots, text messages between them, planning sessions, discussions about handling the parents and managing Sloan like we were obstacles in a business deal. Kyle to Julia, your mom will cave. She always does. Just keep the kids visible and crying. She can't handle crying kids. Julia, Sloan's the problem. She'll fight this, but she's also a surgeon. Never around. By the time she realizes what happened, we'll have rights. Another exchange from 3 months ago. Kyle, what if we just asked her for money? Wouldn't that be easier? Julia, she said no more money, remember? Plus, this way we get way more. That house is worth serious money. If we can get established, we can make it work. Kyle, and your parents are going to be okay with this? Julia, they don't have a choice. What are they going to do? Call the cops on their daughter? On their grandkids? No way. Sloan might be stubborn, but she won't let her niece and nephew be homeless. She'll cave eventually. I felt sick reading it. Not exactly surprised, but seeing it written out so clearly, so coldly, was different from just suspecting. My niece went on. I know Mom's been posting things, calling you and Grandma and Grandpa. I want you to know it's all fake. She practiced crying before calling Grandma last week. Actually practiced in the bathroom mirror. Kyle coaches her on what to say. They have a script about the kids needing stability and family helping each other. Then came the part that broke my heart. I don't want to be part of this anymore. I don't want to be the excuse they use to make people feel guilty. Every time Mom calls someone crying about us, I feel sick. We're not homeless. We're staying with Kyle's brother. It's crowded and gross, but we have a place to sleep and food. Mom makes it sound like we're living in a car. She explained that they'd lost their apartment only because Kyle stopped paying rent 2 months before it was due. They'd saved that money on purpose for the transition to the beach house. When that plan failed, they'd already ruined things with their landlord. Kyle did get fired, but it was for stealing. He'd been taking supplies from the warehouse and selling them online. His boss gave him a choice: quit quietly or face charges. He quit, then told everyone he'd been laid off. He's not even looking for work, my niece wrote. Says, why should I work minimum wage when there are better opportunities? My niece was clearly at a breaking point. I'm writing from a friend's house because I don't want them to know. I'm scared of what they'll do if they find out I told. But I can't keep watching them hurt people and use me and my brother as the reason. It's not right, and I miss Grandma and Grandpa. I miss just visiting without it being part of some plan. She ended with, I don't know if this helps or makes things worse, but you deserve to know. Grandma and Grandpa deserve to know. Maybe if everyone knows, Mom and Kyle will stop and try to fix things for real instead of with schemes. Can I still visit Grandma and Grandpa sometimes? Like for real? Not as part of Mom's plan. I promise I won't cause problems. I just miss them. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the screen for 20 minutes. Then I forwarded the email to my parents with a note. Call me when you've read this. Take your time. Dad called 30 minutes later. He was crying. I'd heard my father cry "Ma" in my entire life. She's 16, he said. She's 16 and she's been carrying all this, watching everything, knowing all this. I know. We failed her. We failed both kids. We were so focused on not enabling Julia that we didn't think about what this was doing to them. You didn't fail them, I said. Julia and Kyle failed them. You and Mom are victims too. She asked if she could visit, he said. Of course she can. Jesus, I want her here right now. My mother got on the phone. She wasn't crying. She'd moved past tears into that numb place beyond. I knew Julia struggled, she said quietly. I knew she made bad choices, but I didn't think she'd plan something like this. I didn't think she'd use her own children as props. What do we do now? We document everything, I said. We keep our boundaries, and we make sure my niece knows she's always welcome, with no strings attached. I wrote back to my niece, thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth. That took a lot of courage. You are always welcome to visit your grandparents. Just you, no plans, no drama. I'm going to help them set that up. You are not responsible for your parents' choices. None of this is your fault. I'm proud of you. She replied in under 5 minutes. Thank you. I was so scared to send that. I thought you'd be mad or not believe me. I believe you, I wrote back, and I'm not mad. I'm grateful. That weekend, my parents invited her down. She took the bus, 3 hours, paid with money from her part-time job at a sandwich shop. My parents told Julia she was coming because legally they had to. Julia's response was vicious, accusations about parental alienation and threats about lawyers. My father's reply was shorter than she expected. Your daughter asked to visit. She's 16. She can make that choice. We'll have her home Sunday evening. My niece spent the weekend helping Grandma in the garden, learning Grandpa's famous pancakes. And just existing without being a pawn. Mom sent photos. My niece was smiling. Really smiling. Sunday evening, they drove her back. She hugged them for a long time and whispered, "Thank you for still loving me." Mom held herself together until they got back to the car. Julia sent me a message. "You've poisoned my own daughter against me. I hope you're happy. This is unforgivable." I didn't answer, but I saved the message and added it to the file that was slowly becoming a record of escalation I hoped I'd never use, but couldn't risk not having. August came in hot. I was mid-surgery, removing a meningioma from a patient's frontal lobe when my pager went off 3 times. Emergency pages from my parents' area code. My hands stayed steady. They had to. I was inside someone's brain. But my heart jumped. The tumor came out clean. The patient would recover. I closed up, removed my gloves, and checked my pager. 3 messages from Mom. ... Call ASAP. Julia showed up. We're okay, but please call. I called from the surgical floor. Mom picked up on the first ring. We're fine, she said. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have paged while you were in surgery. What happened? Julia came to the house, just showed up around noon. She had Kyle and the kids with her. My jaw tightened. Did you let them in? No, that's the thing. We didn't. Your father answered the door and told them very calmly that they weren't welcome right now. He said if Julia wanted to rebuild the relationship, we could talk. But it would take time and real change, not just promises. How did she react? About how you'd expect, Mom said. Crying, yelling. Kyle tried to push past your father. Actually tried to physically push him. And your father just stood there. Didn't move, didn't argue. Just stood in the doorway until Kyle backed off. I felt a rush of pride for my dad, followed by worry. Is Dad okay? Shaken. But Kyle was all bluster. He made threats about lawyers and rights and legal nonsense. Your father just let him finish. Then said, "We've consulted with an attorney. You have no standing. Please leave." Did they? Eventually, she said. But not before Julia went around to the neighbors, telling them we'd stolen her inheritance, that you'd manipulated us, that we were keeping her children from her. Neighbors who had known my parents for years nodded politely and closed their doors. But newer neighbors looked at the house differently. Public shaming, making the neighbors question whether my parents were victims or villains. Smart, in a cruel way. Isolate them, make them uncomfortable, create social pressure so they'll give in. Your father went to John next door and explained everything, Mom said. She told us not to worry. That half the neighborhood had already heard from Julia, and most people could see the manipulation. That's something, I said. She also told us she'd been through something similar with her own son, Mom added. Said sometimes family hurts you the most because they know exactly where to hit. It helped hearing we weren't alone, that someone else had survived something like this. That night, Julia posted a long rant online about elder abuse and financial exploitation. She claimed I had forced my parents into a trust I controlled, stopping them from making their own decisions and isolating them from the rest of the family. It was written in that concerned daughter voice that sounds believable if you don't know the truth. Comments were mixed. Some believed her. Some wrote supportive messages. A few gently questioned her story, which Julia took as attacks. I didn't respond publicly, but I asked my lawyer what counted as defamation. He explained that truth is an absolute defense, but proving something false, especially emotional claims, is difficult and expensive. Unless she's costing you work or affecting your employment, he said, it's probably not worth going after. Honestly, these posts make her look unstable more than they harm your reputation, right? He was right, but it still hurt. My parents started ignoring most of Julia's calls. Not all. They still weren't ready to cut her off completely. Usually, they'd listen to the voicemail and decide whether to answer. If it was just manipulation, they let it go. If it sounded like a real crisis, Dad would text, "We hope you're safe. We're not discussing money or the house. If you need emergency help, call 911. Progress. Slow, painful progress. Mom cried after every call they ignored. Dad looked older, but they stayed firm. In mid-August, Julia tried a new strategy: reconciliation theater. She sent Mom a card with a long handwritten note saying how sorry she was for everything that happened and how she wanted to move forward as a family. It was carefully written to sound apologetic without admitting anything specific. "I'm sorry for the pain this situation caused" is very different from "I'm sorry I tried to steal your house." Mom called me and read it aloud, asking what I thought. "Does this sound sincere?" she asked. "What do you think?" I countered. "In your gut?" There was a long pause. "No," she said finally. "It feels like another tactic, like she's just trying a new angle because the others didn't work." "Then trust that feeling," I said. Mom replied with a short note. "Thank you for reaching out. We love you. We're open to rebuilding trust, but that will take time and consistent change in behavior. We're not discussing the house or money. We hope you understand." Julia's response was immediate and angry. Calls, texts, and furious posts about conditional love and impossible standards. Mom turned off her phone for 3 days, for the first time in her life. "I just need quiet," she said. "Just a few days where I don't have to manage her emotions." By early September, my niece started junior year. She was doing well. Good grades, debate team captain, working part-time, saving for college. She visited once a month, taking the bus down Saturday morning and going back Sunday evening. Julia raged about parental alienation, but my niece was 16 and legally allowed to choose where she spent her time on weekends. During one visit, my niece told my parents something that changed everything. Julia and Kyle were planning to move across the country. Kyle had a business opportunity in Nevada that would solve everything. They were leaving in October. My parents called me right away. "Do you think it's real?" they asked. "It could be," I said. "Or it could be real for reasons they're not admitting. They might be running from their problems. Debt, burned bridges, people who know their patterns." "What about the kids?" My niece had already talked to her. She didn't want to move. She'd finally found some stability: school, friends, job, regular visits with her grandparents. Starting over somewhere new sounded like a nightmare. She asked if she could stay and live with my parents for her last 2 years of high school. It was a big request. My parents were in their late 50s, not old, but not young. Taking in a teenager full-time was very different from weekend visits. There were legal issues, custody matters, and Julia would absolutely lose her mind. My parents called a family meeting, not with Julia, but with me and my niece. We sat on the deck and talked it through like adults. Practical stuff, legal requirements, what it would mean for everyone. "I don't want to be a burden," my niece said quietly. "But I don't want to leave. And I don't want to watch my mom and Kyle do the same things in a new place, pretending everything's different when nothing really changed." Mom looked at Dad. A whole silent conversation passed between them. Then Dad said, We'd be honored to have you, if your mother agrees. She won't agree, my niece said. She'll say I'm choosing you over her. She'll turn it into a huge thing. Then we'll handle it legally, I said, properly, with lawyers, mediators, and everything documented. If your mom fights, we have evidence of instability, fraud attempts, and harassment. We don't want to use that against her. But we will, if it means keeping you safe. We spent weeks working through the details. My niece approached Julia first, trying to frame it as her own decision for her education and future. Julia reacted exactly as we'd expected. Tears, accusations, threats. But when my lawyer sent a formal letter outlining the evidence we had on the rental scheme and harassment, she backed off. Not because she agreed, because fighting it would expose everything. The agreement was finalized by October 1st.